a really important concept is you don't have to stop your thoughts. You don't have to stop your thinking. So here's a picture of a guy practicing his mindfulness. He's sitting, he's doing a sitting practice, breath focus, okay? And he's got his puppy dog sitting beside him. So the puppy dog here is, who's also sitting watching his breath. The puppy dog is representing the man's mind. Okay, so we ask him to sit and bring awareness to his breathing, and it's all good. After about a nanosecond, what happens? The puppy dog mind wanders away. And this is why people feel I can't do mindfulness, because I can't keep my mind on my breath. Nobody can keep your mind on the breath. Nobody can do that. So what happens then when the mind wanders? The doggy wanders off and starts doing his shopping list, or thinking about an email he received this morning, or a text he wants to send later on. So he's off doing something else. What happens with the mind is we go into future focus, something that's going to happen later on, or we go back into the past and we start thinking about, why did that happen like this? And we ruminate about things in the past. So the puppy wanders off. Very important what you do when your mind wanders in mindfulness. This guy, he gives a little smile, he calls the puppy dog back, and they sit. So there's no recrimination, there's no judgment, there's no giving out, there's no slap. It's just come back here and we sit again. So if you sit for a 5-minute mindfulness of breathing practice, you might go through that, calling the puppy dog back. The puppy leaves, your mind wanders, and you call it back, call it back, call it back, and that's fine. So it requires a little bit of patience. We build up a sense of patience and understanding for how our mind operates, that it's just in the nature of the mind to wander, just as it's in the nature of the puppy dog to be distracted by sights and sounds and smells, I guess, for a dog. Okay, so that's a little bit about mindfulness and how tricky it is to teach and to learn. Koru Mindfulness, what's the Koru Mindfulness thing? So it's a training program designed specifically to introduce mindfulness to this cohort of people called emerging adults. Let's explain that a sec. In a way that feels accessible and meaningful to them. So that's core as well, that feels accessible and meaningful. So it's making sense to them. Otherwise they won't do it. So you need to be able to motivate people. What are emerging adults? This is a term from developmental psychology. Which refers to people in the age group roughly between 18 and 30. So if you don't feel like you're an adult yet and you're in your 20s, there's still time, you're okay. Or if you're a parent and you thought you were going to get your kids out the door when they turn 18, maybe not quite adults yet. So you enter into this phase called emerging adulthood. So Koru, to highlight that it's for this particular group of people, Koru is a Maori term for the unfurling fern frond. Okay, so really what the developers are using this image for is to show that it's for emerging adults, it's specifically designed for them, and it represents a sense of balanced growth, which is what we want for our university students. It was designed by Dr. Holly Rogers with some other colleagues. She's a psychiatrist, or she was at the time a psychiatrist at Duke University in North Carolina. And Duke courses are now, this was probably 20 years ago really when she started, they're now taught to students all over the US, to lots of different universities, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, MIT, and many, many other universities. And 1 or 2 worldwide, not very many worldwide at the moment, but we have it in UCD. So Holly spent the first few years, I mean, she spent years doing this, trying to work out how am I going to get emerging adults practicing mindfulness, because you can bring the horse to water. The next part is the difficult bit. So she really spent a lot of time asking students what works, what doesn't work. Do you like this? Do you not like that? What motivates them and what doesn't motivate them? So first of all, she found out things that they did not like. Drop-in classes did not work for students. A loose structure, kind of like that with the drop-in, didn't work. A lack of commitment to attending and to practicing. So if she gave them options of you can practice a bit or don't practice at all, or you can come along or not come along, this did not work for students. The other thing was so more traditional methods of mindfulness training would involve quite a lot of sitting practice, and the students did not go for that at all. So then she looked at the challenges and opportunities. What was different about this age group? They were skeptical of the traditional way in which it was taught. What they needed was structure, direction, and context. So for example, the very first practice that we teach in Koru Mindfulness is belly breathing. And before we introduce it, day one, we ask anyone have any trouble sleeping? So lots of people say, yes, we have trouble sleeping. Okay, here's something you can do if you ever have trouble sleeping. Belly breathing will help you with that. So it's contextualized. Are you ever sitting up at night with your mind racing and you can't go to sleep? This will help you with it. Belly breathing also helps, by the way, if you're doing your first PowerPoint presentation on Zoom, because I did a little bit of that before we came on today. Okay, they needed stress relief and they needed it now. So it's not like do this mindfulness training and in 6 weeks' time, you're going to feel a little bit better. They needed the relief right now, or else it was not going to stick for them. So they were impatient to see the improvement. So she was taking all of this into account, designing the program. On the plus side, she found this age group really curious and interested, and curiosity is something that's absolutely vital when you bring your mind to practice mindfulness. You want to be curious, open, and flexible, and they had this in spades, so this was very useful. They responded well to humor and to stories, so she incorporated this into the program. Lots of little stories, like for example, that guy with the puppy dog, to help embed it in their brains. Also, this was in the early years of the 21st century, when really there was an explosion in research on mindfulness and the benefits of mindfulness. And the students were excited about this stuff. They could see, okay, this is motivating me. So she was incorporating some information about the science of mindfulness and the usefulness of it. After several years of tweaking and playing around, she came up with the program. So the Koru program looks like this. There are two main courses, Koru Basic, and then if you graduate from Koru Basic, you can go on and do Koru 2.0. So Koru Basic, it's run over 4 classes, and each class is 75 minutes in length. So she tweaked and tweaked and tweaked. She tried an hour and a half, she tried an hour. The magic number was 75 minutes. So she went with that. Over 4 classes, so not too long, not too huge a commitment, but a definite commitment. 12 students per group. This again was the magic number, and we know this from running other types of groups, that if you want really good group cohesion, if you go higher than 12, you start to lose it a little bit. Or lower than 12, it's a little bit too intense sometimes for people. The class structure was really tight. So over the course in Koru Basic, we teach 10 practices over these 75 minutes, over 5 hours. So that's a lot of practices. So we're throwing lots of stuff at people and seeing what sticks. Sometimes I describe this as you're going to get 10 strands of pasta and throw them at the wall, and you hope that 1 or 2 of them will stick and be tasty. And each individual participant is a different wall. So different pieces of pasta will stick for different people. Okay, different practices will make sense to different people. So very tight structure. She put in lots of requirements. She realized that students really need direction and focus. So you have got to attend all 4 classes. Now you sign up for the 4 classes. If somebody is ill on class 3, you know, I'm emailing people and saying, you come along to class 4, and I try and catch them up in the meantime. There's required reading, which is The Mindful 20-something by Holly Rogers. So this is a textbook that she wrote. It goes along, it guides you along week by week with the Koru Basic. There's the use of the Koru app. She introduced that a little bit later. So really useful. A lot of students love the app. They can log their practices. They can contact the teacher. So they can send their logs to the teacher on the Koru dashboard, which is me. I can then see how they're doing during the week. And halfway through the week, between 2 classes, I respond to the logs. Okay, so I will give you an individual response. So if Aoife Tracy is coming along to my class, she logs her practice for 3 or 4 days, and then I can give her feedback and tell her how she can overcome any obstacles or, you know, deal with any tricky bits, helps keep her motivated. And they do a course evaluation at the end. So she wanted to know, did it work? Was it useful? Did it work? So she went off and asked this guy, Jeff Greason, at the Duke University Integrative Medicine Center, and he conducted a randomized control trial of Koru to see if students were benefiting. So here there's just the headline results really from that. Students reported feeling calmer and less stressed. Students had improved their mindfulness. So that means that the mindfulness was starting to leak into their day-to-day. So they were starting to notice what's happening in the present moment more in the day-to-day. And this kind of helps to hit the reset button. It's like a bit of breathing space for the brain when you start to notice even just one breath during the day. It hits the reset, gives you a little bit of leeway, and then you can get back into the busyness. Students felt more rested, so they were sleeping better using the belly breathing and other techniques. And they had greater self-compassion. So mindfulness brings us into a lot of the distractions that puppy dog goes off into. A lot of those distractions are things like, oh God, Jean, you made an absolute mess of that presentation. That would be a thought that might happen. So, and that's what we call that negative self-talk in psychology terms. So they were doing less of that, less negative self-judgment going on in their heads, and a more compassionate understanding, kind of a internal dialogue going on. So is this where I want to, Olga, tell me what slide I'm on, please. Help me, if you can.
I think this is where you want to break, Jean.
Thank you, Aoife. Okay, so I'm not anybody else. So my colleague, I was kind of, how can we get just your average emerging adult into this stuff? What would make it more accessible and more interesting for them? So by 2018, I was sitting around scratching my head, wondering how to do this. And I said, you know what, it was the end of July, so I had a little bit of breathing space within the counselling service. And I said, I'm going to have to tweak things now and change the structure of the program. Before I do that, I will do a Google search and see if anyone has done this already, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel. So I did a search, I found Koru, and I said, ooh, this is fantastic. This is the thing for me. This will really work for students here. Everything about it was ticking all the boxes. So I bought an airline ticket. Do we all remember those? And I went to North Carolina to Duke University, and I took the training to teach Koru. I found the training really useful. I came back from there, and now I'm going to have to try and share again. Let's see. Here we go. Thank you for your patience. Let's try this. Right. So Koru at UCD. In 2018, I came back from the States, and October that year, we introduced the first course. So I should say at this point, before we get into the participants, that there are several people, really vital colleagues within the Student Counselling Service, who support me to provide these courses. Every course I run, there's somebody else as a co-facilitator there, not somebody trained in Koru, but absolutely vital to the delivery of the programs. Okay, so the participants then, they're drawn from students from the Student Counselling waiting list, are offered this as an option. Students referred through support services, so our colleagues, the GPs, our colleagues and student advisors, other people around the university can also refer. The general student population is also invited to attend. They're invited in a sort of a quiet voice. We have this, it's on the website, but it's not first, front and center in the website. But general student population can attend as well if they can find us. That's something that we might change, but we'll see. Okay, so this time last year, just around about exactly now, COVID-19, what was the Koru response going to be? So we had a lot of, in terms of the agility, I think most of our agility was on the phone. The first couple of weeks, nobody had heard of Zoom. I certainly didn't know how to press any buttons other than on the phone. So we were on the phone within the Student Counselling Service, trying to work out what are we going to do. And there was lots going on within student counselling. There wasn't just the Koru response. We were doing other things as well, had to be changed around. The decisions around Koru, we had to move all courses online. We decided to increase the number of courses because we had a hunch, at that time it was a hunch based on our clinical experience of students, that they were going to feel an increase in anxiety and stress, and that they were going to feel an increase in isolation because suddenly they weren't able to get into UCD and have that contact with other people. So we decided to increase the number of courses. We also offered a course to support staff, which ran successfully in April. April 2020, the first course was delivered online. It was started on April 1st, which I thought was kind of ironic at the time because I was just starting to get my head around Zoom. But anyway, we managed. So we trundled through April, May, June, July, August. In August, we needed to do another review. So we sat down again, lots of talking and communicating within the team, because we were getting ready for the start of the new semester. So we reviewed and revised the response plan. At this point, it was more than just our clinical hunch. We knew at this point what the impact of COVID on student mental health was, because the research was coming through and was supporting that, yes, they are struggling with increased anxiety and depression and a real sense of isolation. Now, the surprise was there was an increase over those few months. We had a really big increase in the demand for Koru. And I was not expecting that at all. None of us were expecting that. We thought, oh, it's not going to be as good as in the room. And I still don't think it's as good. But in spite of that, the fact that it was online, people still wanted to come and do it. So there was quite a significant increase in demand. So the decision was a bit of a no-brainer. Let's see if we can increase the amount of courses that we're providing. Now, a no-brainer in one sense, but it does take resources from other stuff that we provide in student counselling. So it had to be a balanced response. Okay. So then we got into the first semester of this year. We doubled the number of courses that we provided. So we provided 6 Koru courses compared with 3 in the autumn of 2019. And they filled really fast. So in 2019, courses were taking a week to 10 days to fill. In 2020, they fill within 24 hours. Okay, so a really significant increase in demand. We provided the first Koru retreat. So again, having a sense of students needing more support. This is a Koru retreat is a deeper dive. So it's a 2-hour block where you're practicing mindfulness for 2 hours. So it's a deeper dive for students that want to go deeper into the practice. That was on a Sunday afternoon in December. So I really appreciated the support of staff coming in to do that with me. I also got 2 requests for workshops. One was from Smurfit marketing students, and I provided that. And the other was from the Association of Medical Students in Ireland. So previously wouldn't have gotten those requests for workshops, but they were coming in and they were provided. Also for the UCD 100 challenge, I gave them at the request, I provided 4 meditation practices, mindfulness practices on video. Okay. So at the end of this one, Emer, we're gonna pause the recording. Yeah. Okay. So what are students saying about Koru? It's all very well for me to tell you it's great, it's great, it's great. So let's just look at some comments. They fill out an evaluation form at the end of every session. 100% of those evaluation forms have said, I would recommend this course to a friend. Here's a few quotes. I don't know if I have time to read them all for you. I might just read 1 or 2. This course was an outstandingly positive part of 2020 for me when everything else seemed heavy and sad. So you can just read around those. I'll read out Louise's one, maybe the last one there at the bottom of the page, who allowed us to use her name and her details there. She was a 4th year UCD nursing student, and she took the course in the last summer, and she was working on the front line at the time. I found the Koru course I can't read that because people are in the way. Anyway, you can read it for yourselves. I'm seeing the faces here. So you can read that for yourselves. Okay. So, Emer, can you know? Okay. That student is not unique. I mean, we are hearing that kind of thing from students all the time, and you can hear in that clip that it's not easy. You know, it's not happy clappy. Koru is brilliant, and we're, you know, it's just not easy for them. We know that they're struggling. You guys all know that they're struggling as well, and how difficult it is for them. So because of this is really, it's students like that girl that have brought me to this presentation today. I mean, this is outside my comfort zone. I'm not really loving it, but it's people like her that have made me feel, look, I want to share this. I want people to know the benefits of Koru, and also my sense that it would be great if we could provide more for more students, if more students could have access to it. I'm going to try and get back into sharing again. So we can, Emer, we can put the thing back on if you want. That's fine. Thank you. Okay. Now, what is going on in this? I was a little reluctant to use this slide, but I think it's kind of powerful. So that one person there is representing the one and only certified Koru teacher in Ireland. That's me. Now, I'm not alone on that side of scales, because I do have so much help, really and truly, from, I mean, there are 4 people in the team who do the Koru courses with me, but they're not certified. So this is just me on my own there in terms of the certification. But what's been happening over the past year is more and more and more students are hopping on the other side of the scale saying, please, can we do Koru? And I'm looking at them going, okay, let's see what we can do. So what can we do? Right, so the UCD Student Counselling Service has entered into a partnership with the Koru Mindfulness Centre in terms of teacher training. So in May this year, Koru teacher training is coming to Europe for the first time. So the first time they're going to run a teacher training course outside of the US. Applicants are invited from people with experience in mindfulness and with an interest in bringing Koru to emerging adults. They're really the requirements if you want to go and do this training. As host university here in UCD, training participants receive a 30% discount in the cost of the training fee, which is not overly expensive in my view anyway. So we're very excited about this. I'm very excited about it. I hope that there will be people, more Koru teachers trained in UCD, at other universities around Ireland, and also elsewhere in Europe. So what they're doing is, it is going to be delivered online, but they'll be doing it in their time. It'll be in the morning, here it'll be afternoon and evening for our neighbours further to the east, mainland Europe. So Koru beyond COVID, I mean, yeah, we're hoping that we're moving in the right direction with COVID. I see it as an opportunity. Maybe if this teacher training thing is successful within UCD and around Ireland, I'm hoping that it will offer an opportunity for Koru to be delivered in new and dynamic ways. So it doesn't have to be delivered by psychotherapists or counselors or psychologists. Anybody can teach Koru if they have a mindfulness practice and if they're familiar with mindfulness. Once they do the training. It's an investment. It's for sure, I believe this, an investment in student health and well-being. And it gives an opportunity as well for UCD to support university students across Europe to access Koru mindfulness. Okay. I'm going to pause at this point and say, Trian and Aoife, is there anything that you guys would like to add? Because I'm pretty much coming towards the very end. And if I've left something out or forgotten anything, now's your opportunity to hop in.
I think you've said everything very, very eloquently there, Jean. But I think the main takeaway is that the students, the demand is huge for Koru. The students are telling us day after day how much it impacts them and how much it helps them. So I think, I think we're going in the right direction. I think anything we can do to help more students access it, I think is the good plan.
Mm. Thanks, Aoife.
I'd echo that, and I just want to congratulate Jean and Aoife on a great presentation, and also for the hard work that they do behind the scenes too. I suppose it started really small, Jean, with your Google search, and look where it's gone to. I think mindfulness, there's a lot of evidence and research behind the value of it. And as you say, you don't need to be a psychotherapist to deliver it. And in relation to the working smarter theme, we have been able to translate something that had to happen in a room to Zoom. I know you're saying it's maybe not as effective, and you're possibly, Jean, the only one who knows that from having run Runnish in both ways. But it has, I suppose, filled a gap for students, and it's been, I suppose, the best it could be. And then the other part of working smarter is for us to have some more staff trained in Koru. We would have had to send people to America, and that would cost the organization a lot more money and a lot more investment. So now with the Koru team in America working smarter, they can deliver their training on Zoom. And hopefully, I mean, I'm sure, Jean, it may not be as good as being there in person, but it'll be the best that it can be, I suppose, over Zoom. And that is, it's very much, it's their first rollout, isn't it, Jean? So they haven't done it before. So,
Yeah, they have provided lots of teacher training online, but in the US.
in the US, okay. First time they're
And it's really successful. It works very well. The format works very well because, again, a little bit like the courses for students, it's very structured, and it's really nice program. So
right.
Okay, thanks, Trina. So I'm just going to move us on there. If you want to learn more about Koru, you can talk to us in the Student Counselling Service, the Koru team. I just want to mention the team. I mean, Trina is part of the team. She's there with a listening ear all the time and provides oversight. But the team, the core team that's delivering the thing, is myself I have to be there at every one because I'm the certified teacher. But I'm really ably assisted by Aoife, Verona, Caroline, and Emma, who all really contribute hugely, and they do a lot of admin stuff behind the scenes as well, where I just throw my hands up and say I can't do it because I'm too old. So absolute big shout out to everyone on the team. You can contact us at The Mindful Student is the email for us at ucd.ie. The Mindful 20-something is the book that goes along with it. So if you really want to dive in and get more information on the course, on the program, it's very clearly written in that book, and you can get access to that book through the UCD library service. It's as an ebook, and there's a few copies, hard copies lying around as well. And if you want to look more into the training, you could contact the Center for Koru Mindfulness in the US. That's their website there, korumindfulness.org. So thank you very much, everybody, for listening. And I'm sort of ready, I think, for questions, if there are any questions.
I can see some lovely comments coming in, Jean. You're probably not able to see them, but they'd be lovely to read in a few minutes. So it's very positive from everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, here's a question here. I see this is more focused on students. I think I can see it now. Does it say, is there any provision for staff? Would that be the question there? Aoife, can you see that one?
Yeah, that's what the end of it says, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to talk to that, Jean? Because you did a group with us as staff last summer, which was really helpful for us struggling through the lockdown.
Yeah. That was one of the kind of my knee-jerk reactions was, okay, let's do something for staff. And it was rolled out. It started actually in April, Trina. It was the 8th of April we started that one for staff. And we hadn't done that before. It was a new departure. But I felt like we need to have an instant response here. So we started Koru Online on the 1st of April, and then we put in this one for staff. And I suppose it was just as designed as a support for staff themselves, because in recognition that we were all going to be impacted by COVID, we were all being impacted by the lockdown, and we have to look after ourselves in order to look after students. In terms of future delivery for staff, I'd be happy to do it, but I'm that one person, on the weighing scales at the moment. So if we have more people, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it maybe being, if this could grow, like those very big healthy ferns you have in your last slide there, then maybe staff training or a course for staff would be part of the strategy, because it's only through doing that that staff would, the UCD community themselves who could deliver this would become accustomed to it. So I suppose that could be part of our strategy.
Absolutely.
I just build on that, as you were going through the presentations, particularly at the bottom when you had the dog and the story around it, and you were talking about emerging adults. Now I'm giving away my age now, but I don't fit into that category. I'm a bit older, and I relate. I feel like that would be a technique that would work for someone on the older end of that. Have you got any kind of, I've some people in the audience agreeing with me, which is making me feel a lot better. Thank you. Any comments on that, Jean?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Olga, because that's a really important question and something I omitted to say earlier on. You know, the Koru program is delivered to adults of all ages, and they are tweaking and trying to develop it as well for people in their teens. Definitely, it is absolutely effective for everybody, really. I think octogenarians have, you're not quite there yet, Olga, have benefited from Koru. It's mostly delivered. I mean, she designed it originally for folks at Duke University, you know, university students. Very often students come who are maybe PhD students sometimes come, and they're often, you know, no longer in their 20s. But it works well for older groups as well. I mean, you just change the contextualization a little bit, you know, for older people, but that's the only difference. But it is a great program in that it still kind of will appeal to a wide range of people. That whole thing of widening the accessibility, that applies to every age group, I think, really. Yeah. And also in the US, most people learn it at university and in colleges, but there are teachers in the US who teach it. They refer to it as teaching in the wild, meaning that just outside of university setting. So there are teachers who just teach it to groups of any age outside the university setting. Brilliant. It does adapt very well to that too.
Great, thanks. I think Aoife's going to go through some of the comments in the chat there.
Yeah, there have been some really lovely ones coming in. So Eamon has said, thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. You've reinvigorated my belief in being able to share mindfulness in a structured and engaging way. Keep up the great work. It's a lovely comment from Eamon. Fiona, very interesting presentation, Jean, very engaging. Thanks for going out of your comfort zone and sharing this with us today. I think we can all agree with that, Jean. You did really, really well, even though you shared your nerves at the start. Nikki, a great initiative for supporting our emerging adults. Thanks for an interesting presentation. Adrian, I think this is wonderful. I have a working student at home, a little older, and I can see how this could help, particularly with the lack of motivation, missing their peers and juggling both work and study from home. Thank you. That's a really interesting one, Jean, isn't it?
Yes, Aoife, thanks for pausing there, because I would like to comment on that. When people send back the evaluation forms, they invariably say, I loved being in a group and feeling less isolated. I love the fact that other people are struggling with the same stuff as I am. And it kind of, very often it's hard to get students into groups because they're afraid, and it's, you know, anxiety provoking and social anxiety and stuff like this coming into play. But with Koru, it's really quite easy to attend. So at the very first class, you have no time to think about yourself. It's packed. So you're busy, you're doing this thing, and then she's straight on to the next thing. And what am I to do next? So you don't have time to think, oh God, how do I look? Or, you know, or what are people thinking about me? Or am I going to have to say anything? You don't have time to do any of that. So it's very containing and minding of people in that situation. And I think that's really part of the reason why it works for people. Thanks, Aoife.
Yeah, really good points. Another one from Samantha here. Amazing presentation, Jean. Great work, and how all the hard work is having a positive impact on students. Fantastic. Again, I think the evaluations are showing that time and again, aren't they, that the positive impact that they're feeling. Yeah. And then we come down to Irina's question about the staff, which you've covered. Holly then coming in, thanks for a brilliant presentation, Jean. It's fantastic you've been able to provide this to students remotely. Well done to you and all the team. Yeah.
Just in relation to the remote aspect, we have just a shout out to the student services, because we have space now. The new room in the student centre, there is a new room built which is for mindfulness and yoga and designated for us, and we're delighted to have that. We're not delighted that we can't get into it, but we're delighted that it's there waiting for us. And someday soon, I often say to people, someday we will practice together in that room in the student centre, and I'm looking forward to that day. Yeah.
Can I throw in another question, just thinking about the remote aspect? One thing I'm curious about, is there anything that you've learned from having to do it remotely for so long that you will keep with you as we move back into a kind of face-to-face scenario? I'm not suggesting that you'd continue to use Zoom, but is there anything, and maybe the answer is that there isn't, but I'm just curious if there's anything that you had to do differently that you might keep.
Well, I think the amazing thing for me, because one of the most important things is that we're practicing in a group, you're practicing together. Okay. So when people finish the program, I always say to them, look, you want to find a group to practice with. And we're kind of looking at ways to support students to maybe later set up a Koru club or a society or something that would support them to keep that connection, because it's so important that they can meet and practice together. It's very different if you do your mindfulness practice at home alone in your room compared to if you do it in a group setting. It's very different. So what was stunning to me was the fact that we could get that group vibe online. Yes. I thought, this is not going to happen online. We will not have that feeling. But in actual fact, we can achieve that feeling online. It's not as deep or to the same extent, but it is there. So that was absolutely fascinating to me. And just to know that if, God forbid, this were to happen again, we would be able to do it. It works. You know, so that would be the big takeaway, but in person, better.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. I do have one, this is my last question. I'll stop hogging, but I'm hoping this is one that other people in the audience have as well. And I just haven't asked yet. Can you tell us a little bit more about what belly breathing is? Because when you started talking about breathing, I started paying attention to my breathing and I was moving my belly and I wasn't quite sure what I was trying to do.
Absolutely. So if you go onto the Koru, into the Koru website, they have free resources for students. They have a video on belly breathing. I'm going to show you how to do it now, but just for later on, okay? Mm-hmm. So you can look it up. They have loads of student resources, and in fact, as a trainee, as a teacher doing the teacher training, they have tons of resources there for you. They even have a kind of a dialogue sheet for talking you through the practices, so that you don't have to feel, oh God, I need to really know how to lead people through this practice. So they have a dialogue sheet for you. So it's really, it's bite-sized pieces, and they hold your hand the whole way through, which is great. So what is belly breathing? Okay, so you put one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. And you just breathe normally, first of all. Sit back and relax. I can't sit back on my funny chair here, but sit back and relax. One hand on your belly, one hand on your chest. And just noticing, first of all, which hand moves more when you breathe. It's only very small movements, but just you can close your eyes or just gaze down, focus in now on your body and see, when I breathe, which hand tends to move more? So does my chest hand move more? Does my belly hand move more? Or maybe they're 50-50. So just check with that. And some people are natural chest breathers. Some people are natural belly breathers, and some people are naturally in the middle. It doesn't make you a better person if you're one or the other. Okay, it's all fine. So what we're going to do now is belly breathing. So we're going to take really long, slow, deep breaths. And as you breathe, you're going to see if you can push out that lower hand, the one that's over your belly. So pushing your belly out, making your belly as big as possible. See if you can get a big pot belly. Deep breath in, pushing out the lower hand, and that lower hand falls back as you release. Nice big deep breath in, pushing out that belly hand, almost as if you're trying to blow up a balloon inside your belly. It's a little counterintuitive because we're normally trying to suck in our bellies, but in this case, we're doing the opposite. See if you can really push that hand out. Deep in breath, push the belly hand up and let it fall back as you slowly release the breath. You could use counting here as well, counting to 4 slowly on the in-breath. And maybe counting to 5 slowly as you exhale. So nice, long, slow, deep belly breaths. And that is belly breathing, Olga. So I'd invite you then just check in and see how you feel having done that. Do you feel a little bit calmer and quieter, or maybe a little bit sleepy? Usually I'm looking at the screen and I see people yawning after we do that. So it just quietens down the system. That the autonomic nervous system, the fight, flight, or freeze system gets calmed down when you practice belly breathing. Now, sometimes the first time you try it, if you're a natural chest breather, it doesn't click that well. It feels really weird. It's easier to practice if you're lying flat. So I would say for anyone that didn't really feel like they were getting it, try doing it lying down flat. You can put a small box of tissues or just put your hand on your belly and see if you can raise that up and down as you breathe. Nice deep breaths and see if it feels calm. It's good for helping you go to sleep at night.
That was a lovely experience, and I think it was a lovely note to finish this session on. I want to thank you all very much. I personally got a lot out of this session, and I can see from the audience and the people who were sitting there along with us, breathing through their bellies with their eyes closed. I think I can say everybody got a lot out of it. We've got a lot of rounds of applause going on there in the audience. You mentioned them earlier. Student services are up next. I'm going to allow people to go and get a cup of tea before we start. The next session starts at 11 o'clock. So I'll put up a holding screen here. You're free to stay in the Zoom during the break if you like. But in the meantime, a big round of applause for Jean, Trina and Aoife. Thank you very much. That was a really great session. I'm actually clapping.
Thanks, Olga, and everybody for coming along here today, and Emer as well for helping out, and my colleagues in student counselling. Thank you.